Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. This video is an album review that I'll be doing on Krystian Shek's new album coming out in May 24th of this year called Celestial Court. This will be coming out in Corpus Onum. At the date of recording this video is early April, so I'm really excited getting a chance to get a listen a few weeks before this is actually out. This is Krystian Shek's fifth full-length album released on Carpustonum, sixth if you include. He also had one on the sub-label. Really excited to check out this new album. Been really enjoying Krystian Shek's work a lot lately, on some really great labels, including Grayscale Records, Carpustonum, and Roars. Not to mention a few other labels as well the last few years. I first got a chance to check out Krystian Shek's music in the early 2000s as a heavy follower of Pete and Amlich's Fax Records since pretty much inception back in 1992. I've continued to branch out and follow those artists that released on those labels over the years. It's been one of probably one of my most important ambient labels of all time, one of my most cherished ambient labels in the history of my finding music, and I've really followed those artists as the years have gone over and into their solo works and other labels. It's just been a wealth of knowledge to follow that label and follow everybody involved with that label. One of those artists was Krystian Shek, and I got a chance to hear a few of his albums previously on Carpus Sonum and followed some of his dub techno work, and I've become a good fan of his and a good follower of his music. And I love the balance of artists that do different styles of music. And when I think of Krystian Shek's music, I think of the ambient side, I think of the electronic side, somewhat of an electronica side, but also some soundtrack music. It's a little bit deeper music. There's also some dub techno and some other styles of more deeper styles of techno music as well. And just really been impressed by his music. And I'm really excited to check out this new record as well. Back in 2000, I think it was 2011 or late 2012. Unfortunately, Pete Namlick passed away. It's funny. I remember the month more than the year. I think it was either November or December. I think it was November. And I remember I was staying at a hotel and on a business trip, and I got an email from David Mufang, and he told me that Pete Namlick passed away, and I was really shocked, and I got on online, and sure enough, that was a little bit before I was kind of late to going on Facebook and stuff, but I went on Discogs forums, because uh, we had a fax forum where Pete was kind enough to spend some time and talk to some of the fans and some of the artists of the label, and it really became a great way, a great example of connecting with artists that you really followed before Bandcamp, before Facebook, and it became a time where we could really enjoy and ask questions to Pete Namlick and talk about the new releases coming out, and sure enough, I went to the forum, and people were saying Pete Namlick passed away, and it was such a shock, and I think everybody was really taken back because he was also so young, but he was also such a great person, and not only a great producer, a great label owner, but also a very kind person as well, and who was involved in so much important music for so many of us who followed his label. We were just, I can really say we were heartbroken. I was heartbroken, and I never even met Pete Namlick, but was such a fan of his label and what he did, and everybody really rallied around his passing and wanted to do something to really honor him, and I'm not sure who actually stepped up from Carpustonum. It could have been partly Lee Norris and just the community itself. I'm sure a lot of the artists had a lot to do with it, but an 8-disc CD came out that was everybody kind of contributed a track, past and present ambient producers who released on Fax Records, contributed a song to the box set. And it was just a amazing success, and everybody really cherished that release. And out of that, the label continued to release in his honor, and and a and a home was made for a lot of these artists to release this kind of music, and it honor Pete Namlick in a special way, not only with the music and the artists, but also the artwork that was presented, and it kind of brought the artwork into a new generation, which I love the artwork on this label as well. So Celestial Chord is the latest from Krystian Shek, going to be released on Corpus Sonum. There's two tracks that feature Peter Coy, who is out of Frankfurt as well as Krystian, and he's a gentleman who plays trumpet, and I'm really excited to hear how they collaborate on this track and include a trumpet into the songs. I'm really looking forward to hearing that and his contribution to this album. This isn't the first time they've got a chance to work together. All in all, this album is from what Krystian tells me, this is one of the projects he's devoted probably the most time to in completing this album, off and on for roughly 2 years through other projects, and kind of coming back to it. And so I'm really looking forward to checking out this album, not only from the aspect of an interesting uh, contribution like a trumpet to the program, but also because it's gone, the project's gone over for a couple of years. One of the other contributions I wanted to mention was the artwork for this album, which was done by Brenda Rodriguez, who previously worked on Krystian Shek's album Suddenly on Roars Records. I love the artwork on this one. Great colors, great depth. It works really good in with the template of Corpus Sonum's label and the original Fax design. It's fantastic. If you like what you see from her artwork, definitely check out her Instagram page, which I'll put a link down below. I'll also put a link down below of Peter Coy and his page as well, if you're interested in hearing more from him and him as a trumpeter. And then also I'll put a link down below for Krystian Shek. If you like what you hear on this album review, definitely go to his Bandcamp page, check out his website, and also support him. It looks like the CD is going to be released on May 24th for this album I'm about to review. There's 10 tracks. You can buy the digital album for $8. You can buy the CD for $13. If you do buy the digital release, you'll get 3 tracks on a pre-release, and then on the release date of May 24th, you also get the follow-up 7 tracks as well. But you'll be hearing, not sure when this video is going to come out, but could be a couple days before, it could be released on the day. I'm not actually sure when this will come out, but I'm really excited to get a chance to hear this for the first time before it's released. So thank you to Krystian for giving me this opportunity to check out this music, and for me respectfully to review it and give my honest opinion of each track and my overview of the record. And yeah, let's get into it, and let's hear the first track, which is called the title track, Celestial Chord. All right, so that was the first track called Celestial Court, the title track from the album. It almost has like a music box type melody. Obviously, it's much richer and has a lot more depth, but it almost has that kind of gentleness of like a of a music box playing. It feels a little story like a little bit dreamlike, but it's very gentle and it almost feels like you're being taken into a new world, almost like you're reading a something like Alice in Wonderland or something like that. It just kind of has that kind of storybook, gentle, childlike sound, but it's also very eerie, and it's slightly uncomfortable because it's childlike and it's very gentle and dreamlike. But from the growing bass underneath, and then it sort of goes away, and it leaves the chimes sort of lingering out. It's really eerie, and it really sets a nice tone for the album to really grow from. One of the hardest things to rate is opening tracks or ending tracks when you don't know what's coming next, right? This could be an intro and all the other tracks could be 10 minutes long. I don't know. I don't know how much of this is an interlude. I mean, it feels like an intro, but it is 5 minutes, so it is definitely a song. But I really like the atmosphere that this is setting. It sets it up for a really interesting album from here, and I really like the the eeriness on this track. It's really great. It really kind of allows the artist really to go anywhere with it, and really builds a nice. I don't know if I'd say tension, and it feels a little uncomfortable, but it's almost like a mystery, and I love solving mysteries when it comes to albums, and this feels like it's telling a story, which is great. I give the song 7 out of 10 stars. Very good track, very good opener. Hard to rate again. This is the type of song where I could go through the album in 5 years' time and be like, oh, I love this part because I know what's coming. It's kind of one of those things where it's the intros or intro tracks. If it's an intro track at all, it makes it hard to rate in some ways. It's almost like a piece to the rest of the puzzle and not so much a standalone track. So I give it a 7 stars for now, but it's certainly a track that, depending on the rest of the album, could certainly go up. But let's check out track number 2 called Hope. right, so that was track number 2 called Hope. Uh, I love when an artist includes some nature sounds and some field recording into telling a story. I think it really ties back to the history of ambient music, and I just like the aesthetic, and it really kind of helps the atmosphere of ambient music and electronic music to enter to put in some kind of organic sounds and stuff like that. All right, so that was track number 2 called. All right, so that was track number 2 called Hope. I love when an artist, electronic artist, adds in some nature sounds and some field recording into the program. It always gives it like the track a nice organic kind of atmosphere, and I always love the balance of real and synthetic and organic and the virtual world. I love the balance of that. Just like I love a good and evil or dark and beautiful. Like I always love the dichotomies of two kinds of moods or feelings. Like I also love two sides of sound. The organic and also the synthetic. And this is a great balance of those two with adding the nature sounds in there. Uh, Chord alert. I love the chord on here. I just chord alert. So deep and heavy and powerful. It's This track almost feels like you're entering in another dimension, especially coming from the last track, which is roughly about the same time. They're both about 5 minute long tracks. In fact, they could be almost like identical to the second. If I have to double check. They're roughly like 5 minutes, but it could, coming from the last track and sort of coming into this track, just a great flow between the two tracks, but really dramatic track, powerful, definitely soundtrack like. It almost kind of gives me those Dune soundtrack vibes or Blade Runner. Definitely a powerful track. It sounds like it's revealing a clue in the story, and I talked a little bit about sort of building a story from the last track. Whenever you do like an intro in ambient music, it kind of is the opener and sets kind of your imagination, because you really, you put on a CD and you're really open to what's going to happen, especially when it's ambient music. And I love when artists tell a story through multiple tracks and it flows. And here I'm getting that vibe that it's definitely flowing like a story, because the first track, it was kind of like very mysterious, very eerie. And this one, because it's a little bit more dramatic, it kind of almost reveals a clue, and you feel like you're coming into a new dimension in a lot of ways. But there's still a lot of discovery going on, and still a lot of discovery to be made. And this track kind of still carries on the theme of the story, but still there's more to discover, and that makes for a really exciting listen, continuously. So really excited to check out the rest of the album. I give that track a 7.5 out of 10. Really strong track, really good stuff, and really building a nice story here. Let's go on to track number 3 called Gates of Sorrow. All right, so that was track number 3 called Gates of Sorrow. I always like when a ambient producer kind of noodles around and something turns into something from what feels like just a an expression or turns something they're sort of dabbling in and it turns into something else. But you also gotta like when an ambient producer really doesn't beat around the bush and just goes for it and takes you there. And this track is that for me. Um, Very powerful, spacey. Definitely, it feels like a song you could test speakers to. Like it has a lot of good frequency, a lot of good long, drawn out kind of uh, sounds that really make it dramatic and powerful, and great depth in the song as well. I love the touch on it. Almost sounds like a heartbeat coming in the beat, and which is a nice touch. And then it sort of gets a little bit more echo and like cavernous. Almost feels like you're maybe to the track title Gates of Sorrow. You're sort of going into like something where it just feels more spacious, cavernous. Like you can hear a little bit of water dripping, like you're going into a cave. It's just like more atmospheric, which is really cool. And then it kind of comes back, and the drum cymbals are a nice touch as well as like a timpani. I'm not best on my drum sounds. It almost sounds like a nice cymbals uh, kind of ringing out, which gives it a nice touch. Just a really powerful track. Really doesn't beat around the bush. Really takes you there. But when I think of the story of the album, it crescendoing. I don't know if that's a word, but it sort of crescendos with this track after the last two tracks sort of peaks in this track, and but it doesn't feel like it feels like this album's really got more to give though. It really hasn't concluded the story. Like you feel how powerful it is, but it doesn't necessarily finish what you're trying to figure out, or you're trying to uh, uncover the story of what's happening. It definitely has like the album has a very sci-fi feel as well as it's kind of developing the story, and very very otherworldly album so far. I give this Gates of Sorrow a 7.5 as well. Very on par with the previous track. Nice flow again. Really excited to hear the rest of the track, rest of the album. This is turning into a really story-like album, for sure. Track number 4, Eternal Bliss. All right, so that was the track number 4 called Eternal Bliss. Wow, really nice track. Unfortunately, it's only 2 minutes, but that definitely gives a lot of character, even though it's that short. And this is an awesome track. I really like this track. It almost has like a crystallized melody, celestial sounds. This album just went from spacey to like super sci-fi on this track. The keys at 35 seconds to 39, those kind of, man, that's awesome. That's awesome. It feels very movie-like, almost transcendent in a lot of ways as well. Awesome track, really great. I love the balance of the sounds in the sound spectrum. Really kind of not just kind of lower or higher frequencies. Just really fills in the stereo spectrum really well with these great keyboard sounds. Wow, awesome. Favorite track so far, 8.25 stars. Awesome. Let's go on to track number 5, Solus. So that was track number 5 called Solace. Wow. Awesome. Well, what was I going to say? I love how the sounds play off each other. Everything works really well together. It hooks you right in. The beat's great. Very moving, cinematics, beautiful. The beat's a little funky. Almost sounds like a gangster sea shanty. That's the first time you've heard anybody say that. It kind of has like a drive-by shooting sort of gangster beat, but it's kind of a sea shanty. Da, 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 da. So it's kind of like a gangster sea shanty. First place you heard it. All right. Wow. No, but seriously, amazing song. Amazing. I love it. Awesome. 9.25 stars. Amazing track. Fantastic. Awesome. Splendid. Amazing. Repeat myself 100 times. Awesome track. Awesome. I really love how it kind of comes at number 5. At first, I was thinking like it'd be great if this track was like at number 3 because it really, 1 and 2 would have really kind of built into this amazing, and then it kind of maybe Gates of Sorrow could be a little bit later in the album, maybe in the middle, but maybe Solace should have been in the 3rd place because it really would have amped up really great to a powerful, even more of a powerful peak in this track, in my opinion. But just amazing track. Love it. 9.25 stars. Future classic, for sure. right, so that was track number 6 called Seven Heavens. Uh, Another good track, another compliment to the previous track. You know, consistent back to back, really strong ones with a beat is really nice. Kind of getting into the bulk of the album here in the middle. I feel like 7 and 3/4 stars. Yeah, right there, right there. I really like the progression in the rhythm and the changes in the melody. It doesn't happen necessarily every other like. I'm not a songwriter, so you have to forgive me, but the changes in the when you go through the scales, like it's not the obvious kind of up and then down and then up, and it's kind of holding it on and then holding it. So it's really it gives it more of a minimal feel and maybe not so straightforward, but certainly a dramatic track. Really, really great overall strength of the song. I do wish there was a little bit more field recording around this track, maybe at the beginning or end, to kind of tie with some of the other ones. But for what it does, really awesome track. And right there, right verging on like right an 8. So I give it a 7 and 3/4 stars. Let's go on to track number 7, which features Peter Coy. It's called "The Day Is Dark and the Night Is Bright." so that was track number 7 called "The Day Is Dark, the Night Is Bright," and that was with Peter Coy on trumpet. The balance is fantastic here with the piano and the trumpet. So I definitely got to hand it to both of the gentlemen for for making this really work cohesively in this. There's a lot of times where some of the hardest instruments to put into electronic music can be horned instruments. I think of like maybe house, and there's some jazz and acid jazz and things like that trumpet and horns can certainly work on. But definitely not all the time with electronic music. Strictly electronic music, and certainly ambient music. And certainly here it works well because um, I feel like it's almost a nostalgic like retrospect of I'm getting a very visual, like a movie storyline with this album so far, and this almost seems like a nostalgic look back at the end of a movie and sort of going over what had happened, and there's a little bit of melancholy in there. There's a little bit of somberness in there, but there's also a little bit of hope in there as well. It's a really nice balance. I really love the twinkling of the at the very end too. That's really a nice touch as it sort of continues into sort of like a dream effect in a lot of ways. But a really strong balance here, and the way Peter plays the trumpet, it's just it's really balanced too. So it almost makes me, because you have to forgive me, I'm not necessarily a big jazz person. Also, although I like some fusion jazz, and I don't know that much about. Well, I know some trumpeters here and there, over the years in jazz music, but I'm not necessarily even close to being considered, even a light, knowledgeable person on how to play trumpet or anything like that. But it seems like the way that he's playing it, it just fits perfectly, and the cadence and the color of the trumpet being played perfectly fits in with the with the electronic music, and that's, I think, as an electronic fan, that's one of the main things that I have issue with normally when sounds don't work with electronic music, and he just plays it perfectly, and it just seems to be he's not playing it too much, not playing it too hard, but it's just gently working in there, and you almost forget that as the song goes on, you almost forget that it's a trumpet, and you're just like, oh well, it's just good music. It's just part of the song, and in a strange way, that's a telling sign that it's really superseded my biased opinion of saying a lot of horns don't work with electronic music. Because sure enough, it worked here, and so congratulations on doing that. So really strong track, and I give it a 7.25 stars. Really good stuff, and this album continues to consistently get high marks in the 7s and 8s, so really strong stuff. Let's go on to track number 8, which is Far Away, which is also with Peter Coy. I'm interested to hear how we're going to follow up with that track, so let's check it out.
When I checked out, the biggest man was a baby one time. So I don't know when get all of these big ideas want to be ruled as one people. See? And help and force devil is in. Can't dig it. Can't take 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 it.
All right, so that was track number 8 called Far Away. Definitely a very cinematic track with a sweeping melody. It almost feels like all right, so that was track number 8 called Far Away. Definitely has some big sweeping melodies on here. I love the vocal samples on here, especially the gentleman, which is his name sounds really familiar. I'm trying to remember his name from some dub techno tracks. I'm thinking it's his voice near the end of the vocal. It sounds like there's two sampled vocals in there, but the second one sounds like a gentleman that's done some dub techno work. I can't place my names with voices right now, but he definitely sounds familiar. The it almost sounds like a blues electronic song. Like the trumpet on it gives it a very retrospective look, retrospective sound, and it feels kind of like blues-ish, where it's just a touch somber and a touch reflective, but again, really nice tones. Goes great with electronic music. I really like the Tangerine Dream style sequence that sort of you know comes in, and the nice thing about it too is sometimes when you're what I feel like is if you're a producer, you're layering sounds and you're wanting to introduce a sound, and sometimes you're really worried about how it's going to blend with the with the other sounds and Krystian just goes with this sequence and this sort of like bass. It's almost like as if it was like a bass line and like chord progression, and it's just so dynamic to the track, and it's unusual. It's because it is kind of a very 70s 80s kind of sequence in a way, and it sort of brings it into sort of the new production. So it's an interesting balance of like electronic blues, ambient electronic, and really kind of like a very again cinematic very sound. I would suggest Krystian look at doing some soundtracks, because this is right up the alley of what a lot of uh, movies, I would think dramas and things like that would love a track like these last few, especially just some really excellent emotional uh, soundtrack like tracks. Good stuff. I give that track a 7 out of 10. Again, a very good track. Consistent on this album. Let's go on to the second to last track, "Moment of Truth." Alright, that was track number 9 called Moment of Truth. I give this song a 7.25 out of 10. Another very good song. I really like the lower frequencies in this. Really balances out well with the main progressions of the melody and the chords. Really balances out well. There's a really nice piece about 30 seconds towards the end, about 15 seconds of where it's a little bit airy, and most of the frequencies have kind of or I should say, it's almost like the essence of the melody, but it's without all the production, and it sort of just goes on for like 2 bars, or maybe I think it's 2 bars, like 16 seconds or something like that. But I wish that part went on longer. It's like 4.5 to about 4 minutes and 45 seconds. I wish that part went on longer. It's just a really beautiful, airy remnants of the main melody, but just a really solid song, and really enjoy this one too. This is the type of track like it's I think over time like it will grow on you even more so, because there's a lot of powerful music in here. You know, sometimes when you get so much powerful music, you almost underestimate a track, and then you kind of come back to it. Like if I didn't hear anything of the day, and then that was my first track I'd hear, I would be like really like blown away. But now that I'm getting so many strong tracks in a row, it's almost I wouldn't say it's numbing me, but it's I'm getting inundated with great music, which is a good thing. But yeah, 7.25 stars. Really strong track. Really like this one. Again, another sort of cinematic soundtrack song that really epic sounding, really. But I think this one has a little bit more of. I like the balance between the lower, middle, and upper frequencies. It seems like it's really filled up the stereo spectrum in this track specifically, even a little bit more than the last couple, as far as like the keyboard swells and things like that. Just really strong stuff on this one. Really good stuff. Track 10, let's go on to Eyes of Perception, the last track. Alright, that was the last track on the album called Eyes of Perception. I give this one a 7 3/4 rating out of 10. This is, if I had to rank the tracks in my favorite order, this is my third favorite, based on my score. And this is one of my favorite melodies of the album, and it really ends the album on a really great note. I think this really bookends the title song Celestial Court and also Hope really well, because it almost seems like extensions or completions of the story that they started. It's really peaceful, and I love the strong chord work. Really dynamic, but it's not overdone. Just goes in there for a little bit and just really kind of airy, sweepy melody, and it's uh, I almost think of like a fall night, like hearing this like outside or something like that. Just kind of very it gives me kind of like a fall type of feel, and there's some nature sounds at the beginning, really kind of tie it back to the some of the other tracks as well with the sort of nature sounds, and really great ending to the album. All right, so overall, I add up my stars for the songs, and it comes to a 76 and a half out of 100, which is a 76. I give it a couple extra points for the production and just the overall sound of the album, overall mood, and it comes to a 79 out of 100, right on the cusp of excellent. And I think over time, a few months, a couple years, I think it could grow into being an excellent album as time goes on. Sometimes you have to let these kind of albums sink in a little bit so you can so they breathe a little bit better. This is just my score on the first go around, but I can definitely see, with a lot of plays, this getting better and better. But having said that, very strong score of 79 out of 100. Really excellent album. Krystian Shek, great job on this album. Uh, if you like what you hear, I'll put a link down below where you can support the album. It's on sale for, I think, was it €8 digitally, and €13 for a CD if you like to get a copy. But definitely act quick, because a lot of the CD productions for smaller labels can be really small. In fact, when I got Suddenly, there was only 60 CDs made. So if you like what you hear, definitely act fast and get a copy and support the artist. And but also check out a lot of others' music as well. And definitely, if you like the artwork or Peter Coy's work with the trumpet, definitely check out those links as well. So thanks to them as well for their contributions to this album. Just an excellent album, very soundtrack-like, great electronic, moving album. I think the word that comes to mind most is powerful. Like, this is a very moving album, and there's a lot of emotions in there. And they're to me, it sounds like they're very complex emotions. Like, even when the song sort of sounds somber, there's some hope in there. Even when there's some beauty in there, there's some eeriness and mysteriousness in there. And I think that's one of the biggest successes of the album, is it's not very one note when it comes to the mood of the track. It's not just, here's a dark track, here's a beautiful track, here's a emotional or uplifting track. Like, the layering is just amazing, to where you're getting all of it in one track. And I think the trumpet was a great addition to some of these songs, because there is sort of a melancholy kind of um, a blues sound in here, and a little bit of somberness, and a little bit of hope, and a little bit of this and that. It's a again, very complex, emotional album, very powerful. But yeah, really, really strong stuff. Excellent. Really enjoyed listening to it. 79 out of 100. Krystian Shek's new album called Celestial Court, which will be out May 24th on Carpasonum Records. Check it out if you'd like to hear more, and definitely support these fantastic artists. All right, thanks so much.
Cafe.